This podcast is part of the Listen Frederick Podcast Network. To learn more, visit listenfrederick.com.
The Fedora Files.
Hello and welcome to the Fedora Files. I am Gregory Fedora, and I'm so glad you're here. Hello. Whether you are watching me on YouTube or listening to me on Spotify or one of the many other ways to listen, or if you're checking me out on the Listen Frederick app, you should check that out. There's a bunch of other cool podcasts on the Listen Frederick app that you should check out and listen to. Beers on the Lot, there's the comic book guys, there's quite a few that you should go check out. They're entertaining and delightful, and I enjoy them. So here we are. I like cool folklore and I like mysteries as well as monsters. And what I found was a story that is folklorish, but it's true, and it's a mystery. And it was featured in American Horror Story a few years ago, the one where they were in New Orleans with the witches. And so when I heard it, I did research. I was like, ooh, what is this? What is this character that they are delving into? Who is it? And it may not be the one you're thinking of, because they did quite a few different people from New Orleans, because New Orleans has a dark, mysterious side and some pretty cool and unique individuals. But this one is known as the Axeman of New Orleans. Now, the Axeman, he came about in 1918, and he was doing his deed from 1918 around May until October of 1919, and then he kind of just no more Axeman victims that they know of. Maybe he switched tools, but he was terrorized New Orleans for a little over a year, and he was never caught. Now, he killed quite a few people. The first victims that they are for sure that are the Axeman, there's a couple that they aren't sure if it's related to him or not, was Joseph and Catherine Maggio, and they were killed on May 23rd, 1918. Joseph was a grocer. He's Italian, and he and his wife were asleep when the killer broke into the residence and basically killed them with an axe and mutilated them. Seems that the Axeman, he's in Orange, and he kind of stayed in the parishes that had Italian immigrants. In the early 1900s, late 1800s, Italians were not the most welcomed immigrants to America. People didn't like them, so the cops weren't that quick to go and try and look after these people, and especially in these parishes of around New Orleans. They were the more less well-to-do areas. Following Joseph and Catherine Maggio, another person, two people again, Louis de Summer and Harriet Lowe. They were attacked on June 27th, 1918. Louis and Harriet were together. Harriet was his mistress, as it were. And they were bludgeoned with an axe. Now, this next victim is Ann Schneider, and what's interesting about Ann is she was a 28-year-old woman, 8 months pregnant, and she survived the attack, and this is insane. She awoke in the night to see a figure standing over her, and the man hit her in the head and cut open her scalp and busted her face up. When her husband came home, Ed, found her there, she doesn't remember anything about what happened. They got her home. 2 days later, she gave birth to a healthy baby girl. So she survived the attack, which is nuts. The next attacker, or next victim, was Joseph Romano. He was attacked in his home again, beaten with an axe. The next victims were the Cortamalagia family. Is his man named Charles, their wife Rosa, and their daughter Mary were attacked in their home, and all three killed. The next was Steve Baca on August 10th, 1919. He, again, in his home, killed. Next was Sarah Lamont, September 3rd, 1919. And then Mike Pepitone, October 27th, 1919. So all three of them were, all those people were attacked. Some survived, some did not. But anyway, it's an interesting thing that this happened, and they couldn't figure out why and who was doing it. Now, a similar case would be Jack the Ripper, who was brutal to people when he killed them. But another similarity is that the Axeman and Jack the Ripper both sent a letter, allegedly, to the newspaper, and both of the letters said it was coming from hell. Jack the Ripper, there's a famous letter from hell that people say was Jack because he says some things in it that only the murderer would know. Well, similarly, on March 13th, 1919, a letter came from hell to the local newspaper. And here's what he wrote. New Orleans. Esteemed mortal, they have never caught me, and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a fell demon from hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians and your foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come again and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with the blood and brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. If you wish, you may tell the police to be careful not to rile me. Of course, I am a reasonable spirit. I take no offense at the way in which they have conducted their investigations in the past. In fact, they have been so utterly stupid so as to amuse not only me, but His Satanic Majesty, Francis Joseph. But tell them to beware. Let them not try to discover what I am, for it were better that they never were born than for them to incur the wrath of the Axeman. I don't think there is any need for such a warning, for I feel sure that your police will always dodge me as they have in the past. They are wise to know how to keep away from all harm. Undoubtedly, you Orleanians think of me as a most horrible murderer, which I am, but I could be much worse if I wanted to. If I wished to, I could pay a visit to your city every night. At will, I could slay thousands of your best citizens, for I am in close relationship with the angel of death. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 o'clock earthly time on next Tuesday night, I am going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I'm going to make a little proposition to the people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose house a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well, then so much the better for the people. One thing is certain, that is some of those persons who do not jazz it on Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe. Well, as I am cold and crave the warmth of my native Tartarus, and as it is about time that I have left your homely earth, I will cease my discourse, hoping that thou wilt publish this, ere it may go well with thee. I have been and will be the worst spirit that ever existed, either in fact or the realm of fancy, the Axeman. Now, there's a little hint here that someone picked up on, that they think they discovered who might have been the axe murderer. There's been speculation of two different individuals, but this one I think makes the most sense. According to a man named Richard Warner, who is a scholar and has researched this story and these people, he thinks the suspect for the crimes is Frank Doc Murphy, who lived in New Orleans, died in 1921. He used the alias of Leon Joseph Manfrey, or Manfrey. He had a place called Manfrey's Garden District Jazz Business, and it was struggling very badly. He also hated Italians. And because after this letter went out about jazz, his business went up. Now, people are like, oh, well, that's speculative, but he hated Italians. His jazz place was within the district that all this happened, and he told people to play jazz. And his business was to hire jazz bands. He also sold jazz records, and he profited big off the. Now, maybe he didn't do the killing, but maybe he wrote the letter. That's kind of some speculation. Some that he hated the people, but also that he just wrote the letter to profit, and others, there's another man named Joseph Manfrey, was killed supposedly by the woman, Mike Pepitone's widow, in Los Angeles. For some reason, this man was murdered by Mrs. Pepitone, who was Mr. Pepitone, or Mike Pepitone, the last victim. And so people think this Joseph Manfrey, I'm not sure why they think Manfrey is the person, but it's interesting that both men had that name. Frank Doc Mumfrey was also known as Leon Joseph Manfrey. And so I kind of lean that at least the jazz owner guy wrote the letter to get his business booming, whereas this other guy possibly. But whatever the case is, that after the letter was written, a few months later in October, the last victim, Mike Pepitone, was killed, and the axe murderer just vanished. Did he go somewhere else? Did he commit crimes elsewhere? Did he pick a new weapon? Usually with serial killers, they keep the same MO. And as far as I could tell, there was no other kind of axe murdering guy in the late 20s. And both these two people, the man that Mrs. Pepitone shot in LA died in 1920, and then the owner, Frank Doc Mumfrey, he died in 1921. So maybe he had taken a break and then he died, or he got sick and he was done. But I find it interesting that no one ever figured out who it was or why he did it, other than possibly he hated the Italian families or hated the Italian immigrants, so he was after them particularly. But that's the Axeman. That is the tale of the Axeman. What are your thoughts? Who of those two people, who do you think possibly could have been the killer? Or do you think there was someone else? Or do you really think it was a demon, a spectral? Now, until next time, just remember, watch out for axes and stay safe and keep searching.
The Fedora Files.
Check out FedoraCRT.com today.